April 26th, 1963. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. In the dimly lit presidential palace, François Duvalier sat in his office surrounded by human skulls. Not replicas, real human skulls. Skulls of his enemies, or so the rumours said. Duvalier was dressed entirely in black. Black suit, black tie, black hat. He wore thick dark sunglasses even indoors. He spoke in a soft, menacing whisper, and he believed, or wanted others to believe, that he was the earthly manifestation of Baron Samedi, the voodoo spirit of death. Papa Doc, as he called himself, had ruled Haiti for 6 years. In that time, he had transformed the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere into a nightmare state where people disappeared in the night, where torture was routine, and where even whispering criticism could get you killed. His secret police, the Tonton Macoutes, bogeymen in Haitian Creole, roamed the streets in dark sunglasses and denim. They carried machetes and pistols. They answered to no law except Papa Doc's will. If they knocked on your door at night, you were dead, or worse. On this April day in 1963, Papa Doc sat in his palace and signed a new decree. The decree declared that anyone suspected of being a threat to the state could be arrested, tortured, or executed without trial. There was no appeal, no defense, just a knock in the night, and then silence. Over the next 14 years, Papa Doc would oversee the deaths of an estimated 30 to 60,000 Haitians. Entire families would be massacred. Bodies would be dumped in ravines or fed to sharks. And when Papa Doc died in 1971, power passed not to democracy, but to his 19-year-old son, Jean-Claude, Baby Doc. The Duvalier Dynasty would rule Haiti for 30 years, and in those 30 years, they would loot the treasury, murder thousands, and reduce Haiti from a proud nation to a devastated wasteland. This is the story of the Duvaliers, voodoo tyrants, father and son dictators who ruled through terror, superstition, and unimaginable cruelty. This is the story of how one family destroyed a nation, and how in the end the people finally rose up and drove them into exile. This is Voodoo Tyrants, the Duvalier Dynasty of Haiti. To understand the Duvaliers, you must first understand Haiti. Haiti is unique in world history. It is the only nation ever created by a successful slave revolt. In 1791, enslaved Africans in the French colony of Saint-Domingue rose up against their masters. For 13 years, they fought a brutal war against French, Spanish, and British armies. In 1804, they won. They declared independence and renamed their nation Haiti, the land of mountains. It should have been a triumph, a beacon of freedom, the second independent nation in the Americas after the United States. But the world punished Haiti for its audacity. France demanded reparations, compensation for the property Haiti had stolen by freeing itself. The property, of course, was the slaves themselves. France demanded 150 million francs, a staggering sum equivalent to billions of dollars today. Haiti, desperate for recognition and trade, agreed. For over a century, Haiti paid this debt. It crippled the economy. Infrastructure crumbled. Education suffered. Haiti, which should have prospered, instead became the poorest nation in the hemisphere. By the early 20th century, Haiti was in chaos. Governments rose and fell. Coups were frequent. Violence was constant. In 1915, the United States invaded and occupied Haiti. American troops stayed for 19 years, controlling the government, building roads, and ensuring American corporate interests were protected. The occupation ended in 1934, but it left Haiti politically fragile and economically devastated. Into this chaos in 1937, a new player emerged, François Duvalier. François Duvalier was born on April 14, 1907 in Port-au-Prince. His father was a school teacher. His mother came from a family of bakers. They were lower middle class, not wealthy, but not desperately poor either. François was a bright child, studious and quiet. He studied medicine at the University of Haiti and became a doctor. He specialized in public health, working to combat typhus and other diseases in rural Haiti. His work earned him a reputation. People called him Papa Doc, Dr. Daddy. He seemed kind, dedicated, and genuinely interested in helping the poor. But beneath the mild-mannered doctor was something darker. Duvalier was deeply interested in voodoo, the syncretic religion that blends African spiritual traditions with Catholicism. Most Haitians practiced voodoo to some degree. But Duvalier saw it as more than religion. He saw it as a tool of power. He also developed an ideology called noirisme, blackness. Duvalier argued that Haiti's problems stemmed from the dominance of the mulatto elite, light-skinned Haitians of mixed African and European ancestry who controlled much of the country's wealth and power. Duvalier positioned himself as the champion of the black majority. He promised to restore power to the people. It was populism mixed with racial nationalism and occult mysticism. And it was incredibly effective. In 1957, after years of political instability and military coups, Haiti held elections. François Duvalier ran for president. The election was violent and chaotic. Duvalier's supporters intimidated voters. Ballot boxes were stuffed. Opponents were threatened. On September 22, 1957, François Duvalier was declared president. He was 50 years old, and he would never leave power. At first, Duvalier seemed like he might actually help Haiti. He spoke about lifting up the poor. He talked about infrastructure and education. But within months, the mask dropped. Duvalier began consolidating power. He purged the military, replacing officers loyal to the old regime with men loyal only to him. He arrested journalists who criticized him. He shut down opposition newspapers, and he created the Tonton Macoutes. The Tonton Macoutes, officially called the Volunteers for the National Security, were Duvalier's personal militia. They were not part of the regular army or police. They answered only to Papa Doc. The name Tonton Macoutes comes from Haitian folklore. It refers to a bogeyman who kidnaps children in a sack at night. It was the perfect name for Duvalier's enforcers. The Macoutes wore civilian clothes, usually denim shirts and pants, and dark sunglasses. They carried machetes, clubs, and pistols. They roamed the streets day and night, instilling terror. If you were suspected of opposing Duvalier, if you spoke against him, if you were overheard criticizing the government, if someone reported you out of jealousy or spite, the Macoutes would come. They came at night. They dragged people from their homes. Sometimes they killed you on the spot. Sometimes they took you to Fort Dimanche, a prison so horrific that it was known as the Death House. At Fort Dimanche, prisoners were tortured, starved, beaten. Many were never seen again. The Macoutes operated with complete impunity. They could rape, rob, and kill without consequence. They were above the law because they were the law. And Duvalier encouraged this. He wanted his people to fear him. He wanted them to believe he had supernatural power. Duvalier cultivated an image of himself as a voodoo sorcerer. He dressed like Baron Samedi, the voodoo spirit of death and resurrection. Baron Samedi is depicted wearing a black suit, a top hat, and dark glasses. He speaks in a nasal voice and controls the dead. Duvalier dressed exactly like Baron Samedi. He spoke in a slow, deliberate whisper. He surrounded himself with voodoo priests, hongans, who declared that Papa Doc had mystical powers. Rumors spread that Duvalier could read minds, that he could curse his enemies, that he had zombies, the walking dead, as servants. Were these stories true? Of course not. But that didn't matter. People believed them, and belief is power. Duvalier also used more mundane methods of control. He encouraged Haitians to spy on each other. Neighbours informed on neighbours. Family members informed on family. The fear was pervasive. No one trusted anyone. And that was exactly what Duvalier wanted. By the early 1960s, Duvalier had eliminated all opposition. The military was under his control. The press was silenced. Political parties were banned. But Duvalier wanted more than power. He wanted worship. In 1964, Duvalier declared himself president for life. He rewrote the constitution to give himself absolute authority. Elections were a farce. There was no legislature with real power. There were no checks and balances. Duvalier was the state. and the state was Duvalier. He also created a cult of personality. School children recited prayers that replaced Our Father with Our Doc. They sang songs praising Papa Doc. Portraits of Duvalier hung in every classroom, every government office, every public building. One prayer, recited by children, went like this: Our Doc, who art in the National Palace for life, hallowed be thy name by present and future generations. Thy will be done in Port-au-Prince as it is in the provinces. Give us this day our new Haiti, and forgive not the trespasses of those anti-patriots who daily spit upon our country. It was blasphemy. It was propaganda. And it was effective. But Duvalier's paranoia was growing. He saw enemies everywhere, and he dealt with them ruthlessly. In 1963, Duvalier accused several army officers of plotting against him. He had them arrested, tortured, and executed. Some were shot in the courtyard of the presidential palace while Duvalier watched from a window. He also targeted the mulatto elite. Duvalier despised them. He saw them as inheritors of French colonialism, people who had exploited black Haitians for generations. Entire families were massacred. Their property was confiscated. Survivors fled to the Dominican Republic, the United States, or Canada. Thousands of educated Haitians, doctors, lawyers, teachers, left the country. It was a brain drain that crippled Haiti for generations. But Duvalier didn't care. He wanted loyalty, not competence. One of Duvalier's most notorious acts occurred in 1964 in the town of Jérémie. Jérémie, a coastal town in southwestern Haiti, was known for its mulatto population and its history of resistance to the central government. In April 1964, a small group of exiles landed near Jérémie, hoping to spark a rebellion against Duvalier. The invasion failed almost immediately. Most of the invaders were killed or captured. But Duvalier's revenge was monstrous. He ordered the Tonton Macoutes to Jérémie with one mission: punish the entire town. For days, the Macoutes went house to house, dragging people into the streets. They massacred entire families, men, women, children. It didn't matter. Some were shot. Others were hacked to death with machetes. Bodies were left in the streets as a warning. Estimates vary, but between 100 and 300 people were killed in what became known as the Jérémie Vesper, a massacre of innocents. And Duvalier showed no remorse. To him, it was necessary, a message to anyone who dared defy him. Duvalier's relationship with the Catholic Church was also toxic. Haiti is overwhelmingly Catholic. The Church had significant influence, and Duvalier saw it as a threat. In 1961, Duvalier expelled several foreign-born priests and bishops, accusing them of interfering in Haitian politics. When the Vatican protested, Duvalier escalated. He expelled the Archbishop of Port-au-Prince. He seized church property. He even excommunicated himself and didn't care. Duvalier created his own version of Catholicism, blending it with voodoo and his cult of personality. He declared himself a spiritual as well as political leader. Some priests who resisted were arrested. Some disappeared. The church, cowed and frightened, largely fell silent. By the late 1960s, Haiti was an international pariah. The United States, which had initially supported Duvalier as an anti-communist, was growing uncomfortable. Duvalier's brutality was embarrassing. His kleptocracy was blatant. But Duvalier was clever. He played Cold War politics. He portrayed himself as a staunch anti-communist. He allowed American corporations to operate in Haiti. He accepted foreign aid and promptly stole most of it. The US grumbled, but did nothing. Better a brutal dictator than a communist one, they reasoned. Duvalier also enriched himself spectacularly. Foreign aid vanished into his accounts. He taxed everything: imports, exports, businesses, even rice. The money flowed to him, his family, and his cronies. Meanwhile, ordinary Haitians starved. Illiteracy was rampant. Life expectancy was among the lowest in the hemisphere. Disease was everywhere. Haiti under Duvalier was a failed state, kept afloat only by foreign aid that Duvalier stole. But Duvalier was getting old, and he knew it. He had heart problems, diabetes. He looked frail and gaunt. By the late 1960s, it was clear he didn't have much time left. Duvalier had a decision to make. Who would succeed him? In a normal country, there would be elections, a new leader chosen by the people. But Haiti was not a normal country. It was Duvalier's kingdom, and he intended to keep it in the family. Duvalier had 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son, Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude was born in 1951. He was shy, overweight, and utterly uninterested in politics. He preferred fast cars and women to governing, but he was Duvalier's only son. And in Duvalier's mind, that was enough. In 1971, Duvalier amended the constitution again to lower the minimum age for the presidency from 40 to 20. It was obvious what he was doing. He was preparing to hand power to Jean-Claude, who was only 19 years old. On April 21st, 1971, François Duvalier died of heart failure. He was 64 years old. He had ruled Haiti for nearly 14 years, and in that time he had killed tens of thousands, driven hundreds of thousands into exile, and destroyed what little remained of Haiti's economy and institutions. But his dynasty wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next day, April 22nd, 1971, Jean-Claude Duvalier was declared president for life. He was 19 years old. He had no political experience. He had never held a job. He barely understood how government worked. But he was Papa Doc's son. And in Haiti, that was all that mattered. The world watched in disbelief. A teenager was now the absolute ruler of a nation. Foreign diplomats called him Baby Doc, a nickname that stuck. It was both mocking and accurate. He looked like a chubby, awkward kid playing dress-up in his father's clothes. But Baby Doc was not his father. He lacked Papa Doc's cunning, his charisma, his ruthlessness. What he did have was the Tonton Macoutes, and as long as they were loyal, he could rule. At first, Baby Doc tried to soften his father's image. He released some political prisoners. He eased press restrictions slightly. He allowed a bit more freedom. There was cautious optimism. Maybe Baby Doc would be different. Maybe he would reform. But the optimism was short-lived. Baby Doc had no interest in governing. He left the dirty work to his mother, Simone Duvalier, and to Luckner Cambron, his father's former right-hand man. Simone, known as Mama Doc, was even more ruthless than her late husband. She had been complicit in his atrocities. And now she wielded power from behind the throne. Cambron, meanwhile, was a monster. He oversaw the Tonton Macoutes. He was also involved in one of the most grotesque schemes in Haitian history, selling Haitian blood and corpses to American medical companies. Yes, corpses and blood. Cambron ran a network that collected blood from impoverished Haitians, often by force, and sold it to American companies. He also exported cadavers for medical research. He made millions. Haiti got nothing except more misery. When the scandal broke in the 1970s, the international community was horrified, but Baby Doc did nothing. Cambron was too powerful. As the 1970s progressed, Baby Doc grew more interested in parties than politics. He spent lavishly. He imported luxury cars, Ferraris, Mercedes, BMWs. He threw extravagant parties at the presidential palace. He vacationed on the French Riviera. Meanwhile, Haiti was collapsing. Poverty worsened. Malnutrition was widespread. Diseases like tuberculosis and typhoid flourished. Infrastructure crumbled. Foreign aid continued to pour in. Haiti was one of the largest recipients of US aid in the hemisphere. But the money vanished into the Duvalier family accounts, into Swiss banks. Estimates vary, but the Duvaliers are believed to have stolen between $300 million and $800 million during their time in power, a staggering sum for a country as poor as Haiti. In 1980, Baby Doc made a decision that would ultimately contribute to his downfall. He got married. His bride was Michelle Bennett, the daughter of a wealthy Haitian businessman. Michelle was beautiful, sophisticated, and utterly unsuited to be the wife of a dictator in a starving country. The wedding was obscene. It cost $3 million. At a time when most Haitians survived on less than $1 a day, Michelle wore a wedding dress that cost $70,000. The palace was decorated with thousands of imported flowers. Champagne and caviar flowed. Haitians watched in disgust and fury. While they starved, baby Doc and his bride lived like royalty. Michelle became known as the Marie Antoinette of the Caribbean. She shopped in Paris and New York. She bought jewelry worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. She redecorated the presidential palace multiple times. She also meddled in politics, demanding positions for her family and cronies. She alienated the old guard, Duvalier loyalists, who had served Papa Doc. They resented this outsider influencing their young president. The marriage was a disaster politically. And personally, it was no better. Michelle and Jean-Claude fought constantly. She controlled him. He resented her. But neither could escape. By the early 1980s, Haiti was in crisis. The economy was in freefall. Corruption was rampant. The Tonton Macoutes were still brutal, but their discipline was slipping. They had become a gang of thugs, more interested in extortion and rape than political control. There was also a new problem: HIV/AIDS. In the early 1980s, Haiti became associated, unfairly and inaccurately, with the AIDS epidemic. American media portrayed Haiti as the source of the disease. Tourism, one of Haiti's few remaining sources of income, collapsed. Haitians were furious. But baby Doc did nothing to defend the country's reputation. He was too busy spending stolen money. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, which had been silent under Papa Doc, began to speak out. In 1983, Pope John Paul II visited Haiti. During a mass, he declared, "Things must change here." It was a direct challenge to baby Doc, and it emboldened the opposition. Protests began, small at first: students, workers. Gradually, they grew. In 1985, the protests intensified. In the city of Gonaives, students marched against the government. The Tonton Macoutes opened fire, killing several protesters. Instead of intimidating the population, the massacre enraged them. Protests spread to other cities: Port-au-Prince, Cap-Haïtien, Jérémie. The Duvalier regime, which had seemed invincible, was crumbling. By early 1986, Haiti was in open revolt. Thousands took to the streets. They burned Tonton Macoutes headquarters. They attacked government buildings. They chanted, "Duvalier must go." The army, which had been loyal, was wavering. Officers saw the writing on the wall. They didn't want to go down with Bobby Doc. The United States, which had supported the Duvalier for decades, finally decided enough was enough. American diplomats told baby Doc, "It's time to leave." On February 7th, 1986 at 4 a.m., Jean-Claude Duvalier and his family fled Haiti. They left on a US Air Force plane. They took with them millions of dollars in cash, jewelry, and art. Michelle reportedly brought multiple suitcases full of furs and designer clothes. The plane flew to France, where Duvalier was granted asylum. In Haiti, the news spread like wildfire. Baby Doc was gone. People poured into the streets. They celebrated. They danced. They tore down statues of the Duvalier. They ransacked the presidential palace. For the first time in 30 years, Haiti was free. But freedom came with a cost. The day after baby Doc fled, Haitians turned on the Tonton Macoutes. Across the country, former Macoutes were hunted down. Some were beaten to death in the streets. Others were hacked to pieces with machetes. Their bodies were burned. It was vigilante justice. And it was brutal. The violence continued for weeks. Hundreds of former Macoutes and Duvalier loyalists were killed. The new government, led by a military junta, struggled to restore order. Haiti had rid itself of the Duvalier, but it had no idea how to move forward. The Duvalier, meanwhile, were living in exile in France. Jean-Claude and Michelle settled in a villa on the French Riviera. They lived off the money they had stolen from Haiti, but the marriage, already troubled, deteriorated. In 1993, Michelle filed for divorce. The divorce was bitter and public. She got millions. He got humiliation. Jean-Claude spent the next decades in relative obscurity. He lived off what remained of his stolen fortune. He made occasional statements about wanting to return to Haiti. No one took him seriously. Then, in January 2011, something shocking happened. Jean-Claude Duvalier returned to Haiti. It was the day after a massive earthquake had devastated the country. Over 200,000 people had died. Port-au-Prince was in ruins. And into this chaos, Bobby Doc returned. Why? Some said he wanted to help. Others said he was running out of money and hoped to reclaim hidden assets in Haiti. Haitian authorities arrested him. He was charged with corruption and human rights abuses. But the case dragged on for years. Witnesses died. Evidence disappeared. And in October 2014, Jean-Claude Duvalier died of a heart attack at age 63. He never faced justice. He never apologized. He never showed remorse. And he took his secrets to the grave. François Duvalier, Papa Doc, died in 1971, but his legacy lived on. For 14 years, he ruled Haiti through terror and superstition. He created a cult of personality. He used voodoo as a tool of political control. He built a militia that murdered with impunity, and he destroyed Haiti. When Papa Doc took power in 1957, Haiti was poor, but it had potential. It had educated professionals. It had infrastructure. It had hope. By the time he died, all of that was gone. The educated had fled. The infrastructure had crumbled. Hope had died. And his son, Jean-Claude, continued the destruction for another 15 years. Together, the Duvaliers ruled Haiti for 30 years. And in those 30 years, they killed tens of thousands, stole hundreds of millions, and reduced Haiti to the poorest, most unstable country in the Western Hemisphere. The Tonton Macoutes were perhaps the Duvaliers' most enduring and terrifying legacy. They were not soldiers, they were not police. They were thugs given absolute power. At their height, the Macoutes numbered around 10,000. They were drawn from the poorest, least educated segments of Haitian society. They were given weapons, sunglasses, and the authority to do whatever they wanted. And what they wanted was power, revenge, money, sex. The Macoutes raped women with impunity. They extorted businesses. They settled personal grudges by murdering rivals. And they did it all in the name of Papa Doc. After Baby Doc fled, many Macoutes were killed by angry mobs. Others went into hiding. Some fled the country, but the damage was done. An entire generation of Haitians grew up in terror. They learned not to trust anyone, not to speak out, not to resist. That trauma doesn't disappear overnight. The Duvalier also destroyed Haiti's economy. When Papa Doc took power, Haiti's economy was weak but functioning. There was agriculture, some light manufacturing, and tourism. By the time Baby Doc fled, all of that was gone. The Duvalier taxed everything and stole the proceeds. Foreign aid was embezzled. Infrastructure was neglected. Businesses fled. Haiti became dependent on foreign aid just to survive. And even that aid was stolen. Today, Haiti remains the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It has never recovered from the Duvalier years. The Duvalier also contributed to Haiti's massive diaspora. Hundreds of thousands of Haitians fled during the Duvalier years. They went to the United States, Canada, France, the Dominican Republic. These were often Haiti's best and brightest: doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, the people who could have rebuilt the country. They left because staying meant death or living in terror. And once they left, most never came back. Why would they? Haiti had become a nightmare. Today, the Haitian diaspora numbers in the millions. They send remittances back to Haiti, billions of dollars a year. Without that money, Haiti's economy would collapse entirely. But the brain drain of the Duvalier years was catastrophic, and Haiti has never recovered. The Duvaliers were also masters of propaganda. Papa Doc's cult of personality was one of the most extreme in modern history. He portrayed himself as a mystical figure, a voodoo sorcerer, a father to his people. Children recited prayers to him. His portrait hung in every classroom. His birthday was a national holiday. And it worked. Many Haitians genuinely believed Papa Doc had supernatural powers. They feared him not just because of the Tonton Macoutes, but because they thought he could curse them. This manipulation of voodoo was particularly insidious. Voodoo is a legitimate religion practiced by millions of Haitians. It's about community, healing, and connection to ancestors. But Papa Doc turned it into a tool of oppression. He used people's faith against them. And in doing so, he gave voodoo a dark reputation that persists to this day. The international community also bears responsibility for the Duvalier. The United States supported Papa Doc because he was anti-communist. They looked the other way while he murdered thousands. They gave him aid, which he stole. They trained his military, which he used to oppress his people. Even after Papa Doc died, the US supported Baby Doc for years. They only abandoned him when it became politically untenable. France also gave refuge to Baby Doc after he fled. They allowed him to live comfortably on stolen money for decades. The international community enabled the Duvaliers, and Haiti paid the price. But Haitians themselves also played a role. Some Haitians collaborated with the Duvaliers. They joined the Tonton Macoutes. They informed on their neighbours. They enriched themselves while their countrymen starved. This is not to blame the victims. Fear is a powerful motivator. And under a regime as brutal as the Duvalier, survival often meant collaboration. But it's important to acknowledge the Duvalier could not have ruled alone. They needed accomplices. And those accomplices, those who tortured, those who killed, those who stole, bear responsibility too. After the Duvalier fell, Haiti struggled to build democracy. There were elections, there were new constitutions, there were attempts at reform, but Haiti remained unstable. Coups, political violence, economic collapse. In 1991, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, a former priest and populist politician, was elected president. He promised to help the poor and break the power of the elite, but within months, he was overthrown in a military coup. He went into exile. Violence erupted. The United States intervened in 1994, restoring Aristide to power, but his second term was troubled. He became increasingly autocratic. Corruption flourished. Aristide was overthrown again in 2004. He went into exile again. Haiti continued to spiral. In 2010, a massive earthquake killed over 200,000 people and left Port-au-Prince in ruins. Then, in 2021, President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in his home by a group of mercenaries. Haiti today is in chaos. Gangs control large parts of Port-au-Prince. The government is weak. Violence is constant. The wounds inflicted by the Duvalier have never healed. But there is also resilience. Despite everything, despite 30 years of dictatorship, despite poverty, despite earthquakes and hurricanes and violence, Haitians have not given up. They continue to fight for democracy. They continue to build communities. They continue to create art, music, and culture. Haiti is not just a story of suffering, it's also a story of survival. So what is the legacy of the Duvalier? They were tyrants, kleptocrats, murderers. They used superstition and terror to control a nation. They enriched themselves while their people starved. They killed anyone who opposed them. They destroyed Haiti's institutions, its economy, its hope. But they also revealed something about power, that it can be maintained through fear, that people can be manipulated through belief, that a small group of armed thugs can terrorize millions. The Duvalier proved that democracy is fragile, that it can be destroyed by one man with enough ruthlessness and cunning. And they proved that international support, or indifference, can keep a dictator in power far longer than he should be. Papa Doc once said, "I am the Haitian flag. I am Haiti." It was a grotesque claim, but in a way it was true. For 30 years, the Duvalier were Haiti. They defined it. They controlled it. They destroyed it. And even today, decades after they fell, Haiti is still struggling to recover from their rule. The Duvaliers are gone, but their legacy remains. In the poverty, in the instability, in the trauma. Haiti deserves better. It always has. But as long as the wounds of the Duvalier years remain unhealed, Haiti will continue to suffer. François Duvalier died believing he was a god. Jean-Claude Duvalier died of forgotten exile. But the people they terrorized remember. The families they destroyed remember. The nation they ruined remembers. This is the story of the Duvaliers, voodoo tyrants, father and son dictators who ruled through fear, superstition, and unimaginable cruelty. They are a warning, a reminder that tyranny can happen anywhere, that democracy must be defended, that power unchecked leads to horror. Haiti rose up and overthrew the Duvaliers. It took 30 years, tens of thousands died. But in the end, the people won. And that, perhaps, is the real legacy of the Duvaliers. Not their terror, but the courage of the Haitians who finally said enough. This has been Bloodline Chronicles.